Hello everyone, my name is Tooways Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. I've got a bit of a frog in my throat, but we move on. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be available on podcast by tomorrow. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you're joining us live, drop a one in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a two in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Lesego Rankou, chartered accountant, content creator, and founder. Lesego, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Tooways.
Let's jump straight into the meat of it. Tell us your story. Where do you come from? And even outside of work, who is Lesego Rankou? Give us that backstory.
Okay, I'll try not to go too much, but my name is obviously Lesego Rankou. I originally come from the Northwest Province. When I came to Johannesburg, I came as a result of school. So my whole background, my whole lifestyle was based in the Northwest. I know being a chartered accountant, some people are very focused in having this journey or wanting to come to this journey. But for me, when I was in high school, I wasn't very sure about what career I wanted to pursue. And so I did what all my smart friends did. I think all my smart friends did life science, physics, maths, accounting. It was like a broad scope of subjects, but I just thought, you know what, the smart kids are doing it, just do it. And so when I was done with my matric year, I actually only applied to WITS to become a biochemical engineer. And the reason why I did that was because we did a science project. And in our science project, I was doing elements, and my element was beryllium. And beryllium is used in to make medicine. So I was like, this sounds very smart. Like my parents are going to be impressed. So this is what I applied for. I'm like, I'm going to apply for biochemical engineering at WITS University, and I didn't apply anywhere else. To my shock, I actually was not admitted, and I was panicking. And so when I came to Johannesburg I want to say my first year, my first time coming here because of university, I heard about this university called Monash. And Monash University at that time was still under Australia. So it wasn't that popular in 2014. So when I started there in 2014, they asked me, what do you want to study? And because I was so fixated on biochemical engineering and they didn't offer it, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So the lecturer asked me, okay, what are you interested in? I was like, okay, I'm really good at maths. So he was like, okay, you can do economics. So I actually majored in economics for my first semester. But something was not registering with economics. I don't know, maybe it was because I never did business and I did all this physics and life science background. Accounting, I hated with a passion. I don't want to lie. Like people are going to be like, she's a CA that didn't like accounting. But I was not trying to go into accounting. But halfway through my first year, I realized that economics was just not doing it for me. And accounting was actually something that I was like building interest in. And I realized that it was very different from what he did in high school. I think in high school, you do a lot of bookkeeping, but then in varsity, you actually get to do the real things, financial reporting, tax auditing. And I was really thriving in those subjects. So I changed my major from economics to accounting. And I took such an interest in accounting that I actually became a tutor for first years throughout my second, my third year and my CTA year. And I was also playing netball. So I've always been like a sporty person, whether it was in high school, primary school, varsity. I was like really into sports. So I maintained my netball career also through varsity. But then CTA happened. And I think what shocked me about CTA was because of the fact that I was not sure about like this chartered accounting journey. I've actually never heard about it. Coming from Klerksdorp, it's not that we have a lot of businesses or finances that side. So for me, it was a strange designation to have. I really didn't understand what I was getting myself into. I just thought that I was going to graduate after my third year, but then to my shock, it was like everybody was settling to become CAs. And I was like, what is this journey? So when I started my CTA year, I was very shocked. The fact that like they said there's a CTA year, then you have to do articles, then there's a board exam, then there's another board exam. And I was like, guys, this is a bit too much for me. So I kind of knew already by March I was not going to make it. I called my parents. My parents thought I was just being like the academic that I was. like every time, you know, those smart kids that always tell you, no, I'm going to fail, but then they actually pass. They just thought I was going through that. And I was like, guys, it's time. It's going to happen. Like, I'm not going to make it. So I was really like out of myself. But by the time I got my results at the end, I'd never experienced this before. I've always been a scholar. I've always like loved school. I've always thrived in like my academics. My identity was always like the diligent person, top 10 all the time. I'm tutoring accounting. So I just remember writing my final exams, and I literally put my pen down halfway through an exam because I was like, this is not happening. Like, I don't think I'm going to make it. And I actually was not successful at my first attempt of CTA. And I think a couple of weeks later, there was another test that I actually passed that I wasn't anticipating to pass, and that was my pregnancy test. So I found out I was pregnant, and I think that shame, that overwhelmingness of I didn't pass, and I've always been an academic. I've been like a netball captain. I'm such a leader. I've always been like this person that's out there, just to come and be pregnant at 22 and also to fail. So I really did struggle coming back from that. And so 2018 began, and I actually didn't re-enroll with school. I was very discouraged. I didn't know what I wanted to do. But I think after my daughter was born and just taking that time away and not like letting the shame like get to me, even though it was really hard, something happened. I just realized that, you know what, I have this human that I now have to start taking care of. And I want to set a good precedent for her. And I just told my parents that, like, you know what, I won't disappoint you. I know Monash was very expensive. It doesn't have to be a Monash. It doesn't have to be a Wits. Like, we can even do UNISA, like whatever's going to be in the budget, I'll do it. So I did my second attempt through UNISA, and I enrolled with a lot of like support schools because of the fact that I was still a very young parent, and my daughter was only 4 months old when I re-enrolled. So for me, it was the fact that I had failed without a child, and now I have a child and I'm expecting to pass. So I think the wheels were very reversed for me, because mentally it took a toll on me, where I was breastfeeding the whole year. But at the same time, I was so committed to my studies. I really wanted to not disappoint my parents and also not disappoint myself. And yeah, long story short, I passed my second attempt. It was great. I started working with PwC. And I think when I started working with PwC, I really was not that researched or like, again, knowledgeable about what the CA journey was about. I really just didn't want to disappoint my parents in my PGDA year. So when I started with PwC, I think I started with it because everybody just spoke highly about Big Four firms and associating with Big Four firms. And that was not even a question. And I think for me, because I started working at the height of COVID, I remember vividly that when I started working, I think by March, COVID happened and lockdown was official. And so when we did our first year training, it was just a lot of online interaction and just not being able to get the real work experience. But I somehow was able to thrive because I was doing UNISA with, I was doing my PGDA with UNISA, and I was so used to now doing things online. I was so used to being by myself and just getting through the work. So I think for me, the impact work-wise of COVID was not that massive, because I think I was in trial the whole year before me. And I really was able to handle a lot of the work pressures that came because of the fact that I had to learn how to be disciplined with a baby. I had to learn all these other things that really I didn't have before my child. So I can only credit the fact that I was such a young mom, and I used my story to help myself or give myself an advantage when I started working. And obviously, first year happened, second year happened, wrote APC, passed APC, and I worked at PwC as a manager for a little bit. But I think for me, it's like taking a step away from Big Four was just a situation where I really wanted to hone in for somebody that has like gone full force for this designation without really understanding it. I'm really also still in that position where I can see that there's so many opportunities that come with being a CASA, and it doesn't always have to look like it's going to stay in corporate, it's going to land in corporate. You know, I think that's just been something that I've experienced from the moment I started this journey. So I'm currently working as a senior associate at a company called Gold City Offshoring. It's also an auditing space. So basically, I'm based in Sandton, but I am contracted to a UK company. And it's just been great knowing that I'm back to where it started. Like I'm back in an offshore capacity, I'm back in an online capacity. So these are things that are naturally happening with time. I don't want to say like I have it planned out, but I just realized that when you just put your head down and stay working, like things just keep working out for you. Things just keep spanning out. But yeah, that's just where I am. What do I like doing outside? Obviously, content. I love creating content on YouTube. I remember I started my YouTube when I was in my third year because I had passed APC and I really wanted to give back. I've always been somebody that liked tutoring and liked interacting with people. And I couldn't do it in a big four capacity because I was working. So I just decided to go online and start my YouTube channel and just talk about my journey to being a CA and just give people tips and tricks about how to conquer this giant that everybody has to face when you are going through the CASA journey. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I mean, you are one of the few chartered accountants creating content out there.
Mm.
Why do you think there are so few of us?
I think nobody wants to put themselves out there, you know. I think in this world of like cancel culture and this world of not also wanting to be too visible or seen by people not in the scope of accounting, it does take a certain level of courage that I think people aren't necessarily want to tap into. We already have like stress at work. We already going through a lot because of the roles that we take. Once you qualify, obviously people are in really senior positions or management positions, and you don't want to say anything that's going to make you feel undermined in a workspace, for example, you know. But I think for me, when I decided to go into the space, I think it was just my personality and just wanting to always give back in the little that I have. So it's not that like my platforms were done from a place where I really went into content because I wanted to grow and I wanted to make this thing work out, you know. I really just wanted to help someone because I remember being 22 pregnant without resources and I didn't understand the CASA journey. So for me, I wanted to be that for someone. I wanted to give them access to information. I wanted to also give them a relatable way of viewing what a CA is like because when I started seeing CAs, they were a bit uptight. I don't want to lie. CAs are just, they hold themselves very seriously and they make like everything that they do, you like, yo, these people are sure. From the moment they step into work, you're like, guys, do you guys have your life figured out already? Or like, why is there this
Little they
facade?
know. Little
You
do
know,
they know.
they have this presence about them and it just seems untouchable. So also for me, it was very hard to envision myself as a CA because I was like, my personality is just too bubbly. I just joke too much, but I really do work hard. I just have never seen anyone with like a full personality and like be themselves and like go into the CSA stream. So I also wanted to make it tangible for somebody else that's also not going to come from a family of like entrepreneurs or business people because my family, I think I'm the only one that's in finance, you know. So for me, my family is just very diverse and a lot of them didn't further their studies. So for me, I was just following a blueprint that I was developing. I actually didn't have a blueprint. So I think people just sway away from content because of you just exposed, you just too visible, and nobody wants their business out there. Nobody wants their opinions to also be misconstrued or misrepresented. So yeah, it's a bit challenging. And I just really hope that some people that come into the CA stream, they might take this opportunity to realize that it's not just about creating content for vibes. If your content adds value, if it helps someone else, if it's going to enrich and edify someone else, you should consider it. I mean, you're doing it, so I think we should have more CAs putting themselves out there.
100%. 100%.
Mm.
So we've got somebody who's an accountant or a aspiring accountant, and they thinking about creating content, but they're a little bit scared to start. What advice do you have for them?
I think for me, that's like I would have to think of myself. So I was also an aspiring CA when I started my content, right? And again, for me, when I started it, it was from a place of passion, right? I do think that people now, in terms of content, there's just so much. There's TikTok, there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn. There's so many platforms where you can start content and also podcasts. You know, everybody's opinion wants to take the forefront, but you need to understand and decide why are you doing something, in as much as it is nice to get the validation and the likes and the comments and the engagement, the content needs to be true to why you're actually doing it. For me, I was also aspiring, but I really thought about the people in the township that didn't have access to what is a CA, what do we do, even if I had to ask half my family, what do I do? They don't know. They just celebrate my wins on social media like everybody else, and like they see the designation and they're just happy for me. They don't know what it entails. But it's coming from a place of I really just try to give access. So my content is not also too specific in that I wanted to give a broad sense of my life, my journey, me discovering what I can do with the 4 letters. So if you are an aspiring CASA, I think you have to hone in to say, why am I doing it? And what type of content am I putting out? There's a lot of content already about I guess the aesthetic of life, lifestyle content, and also going out and wanting to be seen, but in reality, there are a lot of employed people out there, and a lot of employed people also do fun things, so it's really good to also share, for example, study tips if you are like writing ITC or APC, because for me, I didn't realize that even my videos that I posted 2 years ago, people are still engaging with them. And I feel like I'm a bit disconnected from the content because I'm not a student anymore. That ITC knowledge is gone. But luckily, I shot a video and people, when they ask me about ITC, I send them a link. I'm like, guys, here's a link. When it was still fresh in my mind, you can still go back to refer to it. So just understand why you're doing the content and what content you try to put out. And also, what are you expecting to receive from it, right? Because going into this route of teaching people accounting, telling them what I do, I don't get as much engagement as I would like. Sometimes you get to that point where you realize, no, actually, I've done the content from a place of passion, but I also realize with everything in life, you want to see progression. You don't want to be just basic or just stagnant. You want to see some level of growth. So at some stage, I also have to pull myself towards myself and say, Lesego, remember, it's not about the numbers. It's about helping the next person. It's about helping that one individual that's really going to change their course and understand what the journey is about and also hone in on themselves.
And I also find that we see as you want to be perfect. Don't try and
Yeah,
be perfect. Just do
everything.
it. Just do it. If you look at my first videos, you'll be like, whoa. It's
Even
very nice.
mine, I cringe. I'm like, I actually started content when I was in university on Facebook. And I remember I used to shoot these videos called Crusty Take One. And sometimes, Facebook does this thing where it like sends you reminders. And I'm like, Lesego, what if your employer sees this? What were you doing? But shame. I think I was so pure at that time and I really just wanted to just share my opinion. And you just learn, going into content, you just realize you have to go through the cringe phase where you're going to put out their videos where it's like, eek, and then like give it a year or maybe 2, maybe 3, I don't know. And things just keep working out because you do get better with practice, with time, with understanding the platforms, with understanding how to edit, understanding how to use certain equipment, paying subscriptions for things like StreamYard. So it's just a lot that you invest in with time, but you can't avoid the fact that you have to have a beginning and it's going to be cringe. Very cringe.
And luckily, there's not that many people watching when you're at your beginning. So the only
Listen,
way you get to where we are is if you start there.
you
Just do
have
it.
to just do it.
For the audience, we'll be responding to questions towards the end. So please add your questions to the comment section now so that we don't miss them. I see that you were in London recently. Tell us about your trip and how you got that opportunity.
Yeah, so London for me was so exciting. I actually, so I started working for my company called Gold City, and I started working with them in July. So, like I explained, it's actually an offshoring company that secons, not secons, but basically we sign a contract with either the UK or the US with the company. And with that company, you obviously have that relationship with your direct company. So for me, it was a situation where on my induction meeting sometime in July, they mentioned that there was going to be a Christmas party. And I just joked with HR to say it would be so nice if you guys could fly us to London. And at that time, there was only like 3 of us that had recently signed with that company. So I think I was taken a bit back when they took us very seriously and they actually booked the trip to London. And I come from a very small town, Northwest. There's no airports, there's no Zulu speakers, there's nothing happening in Northwest. There's just good living, calm living, and people just minding their business. So this girl did not have a passport. So when they told me that like we're going to London, I really started panicking because everything happened so quickly. And I didn't have a passport at that time. And I was asking around the office to say, guys, where can I find a passport? And I was scrambling because they really wanted to like book everything for us. And one thing that I learned from that experience that I want to say, if you ever praying for anything in your life, you must prepare for it, because I never expected to have my first overseas trip to be in London and to be with work. I've always heard that obviously when you qualify as a CA, all these opportunities open up. But for the fact that I was finally living in that moment and realized I didn't even have a passport, I was very disappointed in myself. But I actually managed to get my passport and I went to London and it was really amazing. I think the three of us that went, we kind of connected in that one of the ladies that I worked with, she's in Durban and the two of us are here in Johannesburg. So when we went there, also, it was a situation where we were going to meet our employer and we were going to learn more about the work culture there, who are we working with, so that they can also put a face to the names that they're seeing. And it was such an amazing time because having an overseas trip be in London, I just realized how big the world is. At some stage, I thought Johannesburg was big. And then I went to London and I was like, I'm a small baby in a big world. Like, what is going on? So everything was just so massive. It's very pricey. I don't want to lie. London is expensive. But I really learned a lot about just work culture from my employer. I also learned a lot about myself and just adaptability, because you do realize that when you are working with the UK, obviously for them, their professional body is ACA and ours is psycho. So you just get to see the differences and you also get to understand the way they work and you also get to understand how you work, and just learning different standards and seeing how the journeys are so different. I think it just opened my eyes again to say, you know what, this CSA journey, you always have to be open minded and don't think that everything is fixed. So I really did enjoy my time. I really did a lot of things outside of work. I had this friend of mine who took me to all the lovely places because she had done major research. Obviously, it wasn't her first overseas trip. So I think I relied heavily on the people that I was going with. But I really, really enjoyed my time. I got to learn a lot about just traveling in general. And I just hope that I know this is not like my last trip, but I just know that this is another thing that really, when I posted about it and I made a video about it on my YouTube, I think I wanted to show people that, yes, when you are studying, it doesn't feel like it ends. Like you're just so miserable. You are in your books, you are studying. Everything just feels like it's amounting to nothing. But on the other side of these four letters, like things happen, and you don't even have to make them happen. I also didn't have to push this trip. I just suggested it and then it happened. And you start realizing the privilege that also comes with having this designation and how people really respect you. They respect what you have to offer, they respect what you have to say, they engage with you better, they trust you better, they really understand what the four letters are about. So yeah, London was great. London was just great.
And my last question before we jump off is that the one question I get a lot is, where do you find the time to create content with a full-time job?
You make the time for the things you love. You make the time. It's so weird because also when I did start my content, like I said, I did it when I was in my third year, and at that time, being in third year, you're a senior, right? You're overseeing a lot of audits. You are a leader amongst leaders. Also, you are building or bridging the gap between trainees and leadership and management, and you are like the go-to person for everything. But because it was coming from a place of passion, for me, I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't go out a lot. I'm a homebody. Like I'm comfortable in my space. So it's those little gaps that I got when I was working from home, because when you are in your third year, I guess there's a sense of flexibility that comes with working hybrid. So the fact that in my downtime I shot content, and I'm not creating something, if that makes sense. Like I'm not creating something that I'm not living. So it's also very
True
natural.
story.
Yeah, I'm not going to like over edit or try to, do what like everybody's trying to lean to vlogs, for example. Like people like vlogs, they want to know what you're doing in your life. And you're like, guys, I just want to sit down and tell you how to pass, because doing vlogs also takes time to edit. But when you are speaking and imparting knowledge and you're teaching, you can do it in a stable setting and you don't have to spend too much time creating content, even like going live on LinkedIn, posting something inspirational on LinkedIn. It doesn't take that much effort if you are passionate about what you're saying. I don't go out of my way having a calendar and saying, this week, what are we doing? Maybe I should, I don't know. But I'm not there yet. So it
No, you don't
doesn't
need to.
it doesn't feel like work as yet. So you make the time for the things that you love. Content is the same as like saying, when do you have time to spend time with your family? When do you have time to go out with your friends? It's the same logic. The fact that I can do the things that I love and give back, because for me, this is a form of contribution when I am teaching. I always tie it back to who I wanted to see out there when I was younger. So I always remember for my content to also be relatable, it can't be too manufactured. It also can't be too creative in that it feels fake. Like it needs to feel real. Sometimes I don't put on makeup, I don't put on this face, and I just whip up my camera and I'm like, guys, this is a file. This is how you do a file for APC, or these are my notes. This is how I did my notes. So things like that, because my content was meant to be like that. So if you are going to create content and it's going to be lifestyle, of course, the time element is going to be something that is a battle. But like I said, my bread and butter comes from audit. So I have to commit to my job. I have to commit to fulfilling my responsibilities at work. And when it's my downtime and it's my Lesego time, my camera is my friend, online is my friend, and I just create content from that point of view.
Doesn't take a lot of time. I agree with you.
Yeah,
If you do it right, it doesn't take a lot of time.
yeah.
Any last few words from you, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more of I understand my platform of just becoming more visible. It's just been something that I've been thinking about quite a lot, right? Because it's so strange when you are a CASA and you are getting a lot of opportunities that come um, in bucket loads, and you really don't know which opportunity should I pursue. And you find that everybody posts after APC, oh, it ended in CASA, and you realize no, it actually begins with CASA. There's just so many ways for you to use your designation, and you don't have to um, contain yourself or try to make it seem as if I'm going to follow the traditional route. Some of us are just also as young and aspirational, even though we are qualified, but we are also still navigating those very early stages of our career, making mistakes, being comfortable with failure, being comfortable with not knowing exactly how I'm going to be or work in the next 5, 10 years. So just be comfortable in your authentic self and don't be misled by what you see on the outside. Don't just also spend too much time looking outside at other people and what they're doing, and just push whatever passion that you're about and whatever it is that you are doing. For me, I think my mom told me this when I was pregnant. She told me that pregnancy is not a disability. Nothing that happened to me was ever going to like hone me down. But you actually just need to make sure that whatever it is that you're passionate about, it takes work, it takes time. It does take resilience, it takes support from family, from friends. So just make sure that when you are going through moments of doubt, that you center yourself and you pull yourself towards yourself and you don't spend too much time looking outwards. So yeah, that's just my last 2 cents.
I think that's a great way to end. The show has been live on YouTube and will be available on podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Lesego, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Tooways. Thank you everybody for watching.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat.